All right, what's going on, ladies and gentlemen? What I have right here in my hand is a forensic investigative report concerning the death of Mr. Dae'on Saquon Sims Broadie. Now, if you've been following this channel, you know I did a video of him last year and the year before that concerning his death, which happened on January the 9th, 2021, a little over 3 years ago in Pikeville. Now, I gave the details of the death, the circumstances around the suspicious nature around the scene of his death, and his death was originally ruled as a suicide. But because of the mother and fathers and other family members' disagreement with that rush to judgment, apparently they have hired a firm, an investigative firm, to analyze the evidence, the circumstances, and the testimony surrounding this. And this report alerts us that his death most likely was not a suicide. And I'm going to read you the findings. And once again, this is from Laura Pelter and Associates. But this is very telling. It says, Dr. Laura Petler finds that the death of the decedent, which is Mr. Sims Broadie, should have at the very bare minimum been ruled manner of death undetermined by law enforcement, which is the Wayne County Sheriff Department, and medical personnel in the jurisdiction, which is Wayne County, of where the descendant became injured and where he subsequently was treated, then died. Next statement. Dr. Petler disagrees with the ruling manner of death suicide based solely on the body as evidence and Miss Williams' statement that the descendant shot himself in front of her. Now, what this lady is talking about is the only way that Wayne County Sheriff and forensic investigators determined, or quote unquote determined, that it was a suicide was the manner of the body, the way the body was positioned on the bed, and the eyewitness testimony of one Miss Williams, who screamed out that, hey, I can't believe that this MFer just shot himself. Now, the previous video, we went over all of the intricate details of the situation before his death, leading up to his death, and after his death. So I'm not going to go right into that situation, but I will give you a couple of details. Once again, Mr. Dae'on was 20 years old. He was, a young man, hung around with a lot of friends, very well liked in the community. This one particular incident that brought his name into another murder investigation, which I have learned personally that this was a false rush to judgment, but that him being implicated or being accused or alleged to being accused in another murder was a very integral part of his death being ruled a suicide. Basically, he was accused of killing another man, and then they tried to say that he was just so distraught about killing this other man that he took his life. Now, the scene at the house was very, once again, it was glossed over. They said that the police just walked in and, looked around the room, didn't really do a forensic audit of the area, and just pretty much ruled it a suicide. Now, several factors were awry with the situation. I think his mother said that the gun was in his right hand when he was left-handed, or the gun was in his left hand when he was right-handed. So whatever hand that he supposedly shot himself with, that was not his dominant hand, which I think there's a study that shows most people who do certain things like that um, will do it with their dominant hand. Also, there was no like blood splatter on the wall where he was. It looked like that from the parents' testimony that he was positioned, that he may have been killed somewhere else and brought into the house. There were several people who were outside. There was supposed to be an altercation outside. So many factors, and actually, I am going to have. Um, Mr. Sims Broadie's father, or the husband of his mother, give a in-depth interview so we can rehash this. But there were so much just inconsistencies with the testimony. Even they said that they just allowed this eyewitness to just walk out. Nobody else was questioned. They just immediately deemed his death a suicide based on the fact that this young girl, who has a very bad reputation, who has also been around several other deaths or crimes in the area, they just base their findings and their reports based on her initial testimony. Now, we all know about the corruption in the Wayne County Sheriff Department. Also, more ineptitude has been coming out about the way they do investigations. You know about the Josh Keating case, several other cases that I've highlighted, which highlighted possible police inefficiency or even outright misconduct or negligence or mishandling evidence, things like that. So evidently this family took it upon themselves. They would not rest. The mother, I was very adamant. I interviewed them at length. I think it was 2 hours on my radio show last year or the year before last. And they had so many questions, so much evidence to the contrary. And when he comes, we're supposed to do an interview later today. So when he comes on, I'm also going to release that interview so he can give you the intricate details of why. Now, this is just the end of the report that I have here, and I'm going to read more of it. But they said that this report contained over 160 pages of findings and how and why that Ms. Petler came to this conclusion. And it lists 6 through 8 up here. So evidently it was 8 parts that she analyzed that led her to reverse the decision that it was a suicide and ruled that it should have been at least undetermined, meaning we can't figure out how this death occurred, instead of saying it was a suicide just based off pretty much the eyewitness. But 3 of the points, and I guess I'll get the rest of them. It says witness interviews, psychological autopsy, and person of interest investigation. Now, once again, there was no person of interest because they immediately ruled it a suicide. Because once again, I think law enforcement was under the impression that Mr. Sims had something to do with another death that occurred, which I personally found, evidence to the contrary, based on talking to someone else about another situation that actually tied into this situation. And maybe we'll be able to revisit that in the future. But what Ms. Petler recommends is a full descendant-centered death investigation. That means a full investigation surrounding Mr. Dae'on Sims Broadie. Even a possible, exhumation or autopsy. And then she recommends a shooting incident reconstruction, recreation, or reenactment. Meaning, they want to get in there in that room and sit down and place the body where he was and see if, whether that could be possible, being the position of the blood splatter and, his body and the bullet holes. They want to do a whole reenactment of the situation. They want to do background investigations and field interviews and statement analysis, meaning taking statements from, the people who gave statements, and I don't know who those people are, and forensic testing. Also, the request to amend, and this is the final paragraph. Ms. Petler and Associates says, based on the findings above, the manner of death, suicide, as currently listed as the official manner of death of the descendant, may not be supported by the majority of the totality of circumstances and related to victimology content analysis, suspectology content analysis, and I believe, okay, well, how many suspects do we have? Autopsy report, toxicology report, law enforcement reports, death scene analysis, forensic laboratory analysis, physical evidence analysis, legal considerations, statement analysis, and expert analysis, review findings conducted in a future full descendant-centered death investigation. Dr. Petler opines the private forensic pathologist in this case might consider amending his manner of death ruling to undetermined pending further investigation. So evidently this investigative team and investigative analysis did a much thorough job than Wayne County Sheriff Office and detectives, and the family can tell you more about this incident. But I was, and the way they broke it down too, I was definitely suspect of it happening in that manner, because just too many questions, too many doors were left ajar, so to speak, in the testimony of especially the quote unquote eyewitness. Who they based their findings on. Says, if someone's in a room with me and I just say, yeah, they just shot themselves, and then you don't analyze me, you don't lie detect me, you don't test me for gun prints, you don't do anything, you just let me walk out and never speak to me again. I think that was part of the reasoning, just one part of the reason that the family wanted more information concerning this. So we're going to keep you up to date with this. But yes, Dae'on Saquon Sims Broadie, whose death occurred on January the 9th, 2023, and was ruled as a suicide. This report contradicts that ruling. And so once again, we have to hold those people who are supposedly accountable. And I'm pretty sure after 3 years, a lot of them guys have retired, have moved on, and done some other things, but there's probably still a remnant there who may be able to answer to this or even help this investigation further along. If you have any information concerning this and any other case, feel free to call me 919-587-7782. But I will be talking to the relative of Mr. Broadie later today. We're going to do an in-depth analysis of that analysis and also the crime scene and the night in question to give you guys a better overview on what we're talking. Once again, peace and blessings. I'm out.